This is a Founding Media podcast.
Hey, welcome back to Leveraging Life, the uncommon conversation of men and women transforming adversity into a mission to serve others. I'm Becky.
I'm Courtney. Hi, how are you?
Well, hello, Courtney.
Well, hello, Becky.
It's great to be back.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, so today we are talking about attraction, patterns, alignment that get in the way of leveraging one's life, that actually keep us stuck in the old, disempowered ways of being.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how to identify them and at least start the conversation of what to do with them.
Absolutely. There has to be some self-actualization when you realize that there is a pattern in your life. I actually see a ton of them in my own life. So I'm interested. This is going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, well, so you see a ton of them in your own life. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What are some of the patterns you've recognized?
Well,
that keep you from leveraging.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and people say all the time, it's like, I'm a people pleaser. And it's like, well, what does that actually mean? And I know for me, it is very, very difficult for me to feel like I've disappointed someone. So I will, and I have done things that are detrimental to myself and even to that person because I haven't been necessarily forthright about my limitations. I wasn't real with them and told them this is something this is going to limit me from delivering what you've asked me to do. So there are times in my life where I continually see this pattern where I've allowed myself to get into a situation where I should have just told them what the real deal was. And I just didn't because I didn't want them to be upset or disappointed. I identify that. I think it's coming from childhood and I'm still working on it, but it's something that I know it's a definite pattern in my life that I would love to get to the root of.
Yeah. Yeah. So for myself as well, there are patterns that I've identified, I've worked on, and have actually been able to create some new habits in those areas. And then, there are others that, growth never ends, right? As long as we're on the planet, we're going to keep growing. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I really look at it from that perspective of, again, not trying to fix something that's broken, but recognizing where can I grow next.
Absolutely.
And one of the patterns that I've seen, and I think this is true for anyone who's had an experience where they've been left disempowered, is an unconscious habit with being victimized, right? So that we make choices that actually leave us disempowered. And it's not that we like it. And this is what's really important about attraction. Attraction isn't about what you like. Attraction is about what feels familiar.
Sure.
So especially in those early years as a child, or significant experiences, even as an adult, if it gets in there and it gets deep down as this is what feels familiar, we will tend to gravitate towards that. And so I saw in my life this pattern of setting up my relationships in a way where I, quote unquote, got the shaft or I got the run of the deal every single time.
He did this to me.
Exactly. I got to be the victim all over again, and I hated it.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, I hate this, but it was my choices, conscious or unconscious, kept moving me in this direction that set me up for that. And it wasn't until I saw that I was the common denominator.
Now that's some be real, I'm doing it stuff right there. Like, people are not willing to admit that maybe I might be responsible for a little of this. Yeah.
And we're going to have a conversation on responsibility and versus blame and fault. That one's upcoming. Right. We're definitely going to explore that one deeper.
Sure.
But tell me, I'm curious, you were talking a little earlier about a situation currently.
Yes.
Where you're recognizing some patterns that are leaving you stuck.
This is something that I've been literally talking about in my life for the last 10 years, because when I left my abusive relationship, I was no longer in physically abusive relationships, but I found where I was being manipulated or in some sort of mental or emotionally abusive relationship. And I was like, how is this happening? But it wasn't in a partner relationship. It was in a business relationship. It wasn't a friendship. And I was like, wow, I thought it was limited to somebody that I was actually being, in a relationship, with, and apparently it's not. It has popped up again in my life where I'm like, how did I not see this person for who they were at the beginning? And what am I contributing to the situation? Because again, it is, I am in that mixture. I am part of that cocktail that is adding up to this relationship. So what am I doing to create this environment where these abusive relationships continue to happen? But now it's popped up in a business relationship where I'm going to have to cut someone off because we are not compatible in that way. And I'm just not willing to sacrifice what I know myself to be for the sake of that relationship.
Well, and can you share what is the difference in how it's showing up now in a business context? That's different than how it showed up in an intimate partner. What's different about it? It seems like maybe that there can be some things that are maybe a little more subtle.
Sure.
Or a little more difficult to recognize that, there's some boundaries that are being violated here.
Of course. It's not physical, of course. So it's not a physical
issue.
It's more so the manipulation and the use of power over me is being used through resources. So it's like, oh, okay, that doesn't feel good. And that looks like a physically abusive relationship, but it's showing up as a business relationship. It's the weirdest thing, but they have the same traits. They look the same, except there's the methodology of how the abuse is happening is different.
Yeah.
So how it's actually going down is completely different. It's not fists this time. It's more so words and how words are being used. And it's interesting. It's definitely something that's at top of mind right now for me. Just thinking through what I'm dealing with at this very moment. And I know people deal with it all the time. It's in friendships. I shortly after my abusive relationship, I realized that I was in an abusive friendship because this person was trying to control my movements. Like they would call me 14 times a day and they would show up when uninvited and things like that. And I was just like, why am I allowing this to happen? So I really feel like there has to be some actual work on Courtney done to deal with this and to end it forever. I mean, I started a book called You Are Here Again 10 years ago to deal with this topic. And my publisher said, break this up into 3 different books because this is a topic that a lot of people deal with. And I think it would be very good. So,
yeah. Well, and something that I want to point out about this is that if there's a pattern, if there's an alignment, again, like what we said, is that it's not about what you like or what feels good. It's just about what's familiar, what has gotten reinforced and programmed, what has gotten into the level of habit, right? So what's really important in the conversation is to approach it from a place of non-judgment.
Yes.
There's nothing bad or wrong that this habit is in there. It's actually it's the very same mechanism that allows me to drive a car.
Sure.
Without thinking about all the details of it because things get put on autopilot. Where that can get in our way is that when the things that are on autopilot are disempowering for us, that's where we need to look at it and say, okay, is there something going on there that I can begin to consciously work on and shift and change around? Like if this pattern's no longer serving me.
Sure.
So that's really important because when we bring judgment, like this is bad or wrong, that this is happening, it actually gets in the way of us doing the work.
Yeah, it becomes a stumbling block for us to actually get it done.
Right, because if we're beating ourselves up about it, I love this metaphor that when we're beating ourselves up for something that we identify, that's like dealing with a flat tire by bashing in your windshield. It's like, oh, I've identified something that needs work and help, and now I'm just going to keep, throwing coals, on my head.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be able to come at this from a place of non-judgment and just look at what is the impact of this pattern in my life.
Well, Becky, that brings like we talked about these earlier. It's like how do patterns start? Like how does that actually take root in your life? Because I know that it has to do with, early childhood. I know that it has to do with like the brain's actual structure, but I don't know much more beyond that. I think that patterns, it's not just something you do. It's actually neurological, correct? Or
sure, because that is, every pattern has a neurological basis for it. That's why it's become a pattern, is because we say that neurons that fire together wire together.
Okay.
So something that gets reinforced, and actually your brain has this limited amount of material that actually binds neurons together. These connection points, and so
I'm learning so much from Becky. She's really smart.
So that's what happens. What they refer to as pruning in the brain is that we also say use it or lose it, right? So if you don't use a particular skill, those connections will start to break away, as in the material that holds those neurons together will get used to hold together other connections instead.
Wow.
Yeah. So you've got both. So whatever's getting reinforced, it's literally getting more and more connecting.
Wow.
Material holding it together. Yeah. So another thing that is at play is that once that pattern is established, it actually creates a neurological chemical experience on the inside, so that once you try to break that pattern or habit, you actually have a neurological reaction that is craving that particular experience because it's been reinforced.
Yeah, it's what
it's what you know.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what's happening neurochemically, without using a bunch of the big fancy words. That's
neurochemically.
Yeah, that's as fancy as it's going to get today.
In the comments
yeah. But then another way that we can go at it is from this aspect of the comfort zone or the set point. If you look at the unconscious brain, almost like a thermostat. And so there is this particular set point for what feels normal.
Right.
So you start getting too far above that set point, mm-hmm. and I'll say above as in life starts feeling too good for you.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
It's felt too good for too long.
And now you're okay.
Right? You will go into sabotaging behavior to get back into that set point.
I literally had a conversation with somebody last week. It's like, my life is too good right now. I'm freaking out.
Perfect.
That's
yes,
crazy.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And so we are, because that's what the subconscious does is it keeps putting us back into what feels familiar.
Wow.
And in particular, survival brain, mm-hmm. which, again, we're not going to get into the complex terminology, but the survival brain, which is this primal part of the brain that all of us have, that when it gets triggered,
sure.
like it perceives a threat,
yeah.
all it is designed to do is to keep you safe, like to get you through a crisis.
Right.
That's all it can do.
Right.
So, which means, in other words, to get you back into what feels familiar.
Right.
Okay?
So it gets you back to your normal.
Right.
Right.
It cannot help you grow.
Right.
It's not designed to do that.
Sure.
So there's this tension then between old patterns, what feels familiar.
And new patterns.
And then wanting to grow.
Right.
It actually is going to involve discomfort.
Yes. And of course,
it's going to feel uncomfortable.
I don't want to be discomforted, so I'll just go back to what I know.
Right. So that's another thing that's at play is that once if we've got a certain pattern in place, then I start doing something different. I engage in a different quality of relationship or a different quality of success. It starts to feel uncomfortable. And if I haven't done my work, if I don't know that this is going on,
sure.
I will go into that scrambling behavior.
Wow.
To get back into what does feel comfortable, the struggle or the what have you.
It's funny because when I work with these clients, that's what I hear all the time. It's so uncomfortable to move forward because, like you said, these patterns are so embedded into who they are that they don't even know that there's a possibility. You show them options. It's like, hey, there's this great job opportunity. You should go for it. They're going to hire you. It's a great pay rate. It's a challenge and it's beyond what they're willing to go. But this even explains it even further. It's like, it's not even neurologically possible until there's something done. So how do you break that pattern? How do you break that pattern from being in that place? Like, so how does it start and how do you break it?
Yeah. So that is a great question.
Yes.
And we're going to get into part of that today. And some of it will also be in an upcoming episode that's in the works. So breaking the pattern, the first and foremost quality of breaking the pattern is being aware that the pattern exists. Actually seeing it and identifying it, because we don't have the choices that we can't see.
Right.
If I can't see it, I have no access to it. I don't even know that it's there. So there are ways that individually, there are questions that I can ask myself to look at and identify it, as well as in relationship with a therapist, a coach, a mentor, a spiritual director, someone who can help me navigate and identify the patterns, because that's one of the trickiest things to get at is because it's in this world of the blind spot.
Sure.
That I can't even recognize that it's there.
Right.
So it can be helpful. Even a friend, a lot of times, can help point out patterns.
Absolutely.
Just asking, hey, do you see a pattern, a disempowered pattern going on in my life? And I bet you if you've got someone in your world on a regular basis, they'll be able to, if you're open to it,
that's the thing right there, being open to the constructive criticism you're going to receive.
Yeah, exactly, because it may be surprising.
Right.
And that's the whole point. When it's in your blind spot, it's going to be surprising.
Sure.
Because it wasn't already on your radar.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something new to you. So you're going to be like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. It might be kind of gross for you to accept.
Yeah. So here are some questions on the individual level that can start to, help you identify. Okay. So one of the questions is really just to look at, what are the disempowered patterns that I see? Like, what continues to happen in my intimate relationships, business relationships, in my health, that leaves me feeling stuck, leaves me feeling helpless or frustrated. Okay. And you can begin to just take note of that, or, start to do, just observe it. Again, without any kind of judgment around it, that it's good or bad or shouldn't be there.
That non-judgment is very important. Very, very much important.
Yes. Another question is, what is it in me? Now, this is like big girl britches time, okay?
Put your big girl britches on.
What is it in me that aligns or allows for this dynamic to be there?
Oh my goodness, you're in my field. That is a very difficult question to ask, because we are told not to shame victims. And it's not victim shaming, because we've had this conversation about it's a matter of accountability versus victim shaming. If you're not willing to claim this, you can't fix it. And I think a lot of times people are stirred away from realizing truth because you don't want them to feel bad, but it's uncomfortable, like you said. It's necessary.
Yeah.
So talk more about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what is it in me that aligns with this? Another way to ask that is, what about this feels familiar?
Right.
Did I have experiences early on a regular basis, or like a significant event in my life where not when did this happen before, but when did I experience a situation that left me feeling this same way? Right. The disempowered, stuck, helpless. I can't do anything here about it. So it's really being able to identify, where does the familiarity come from? Now, more big girl britches.
Big girl britches time.
Okay. Because so you can identify it, right? But what if you keep getting drawn into it anyway? All right, I know this is an issue and I keep doing it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. What is the upside to this pattern? I don't like it. It hurts me. It's giving me the life I don't want to have. But what is the upside to it? Because people don't keep doing things that don't have some sort of benefit.
But I would think that it would be the familiarity of the pattern that keeps you doing it, not so much the benefit that you get from doing the pattern.
Well, the familiarity can be one of the benefits. Okay. Another one might be, because this is true. Like, who would I be without this?
It might be something you identify yourself, like you self-identify with this thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So sometimes the benefit is in avoiding the discomfort. Avoiding the fear.
Yeah.
What would my family think if all of a sudden I was successful, rather than every business I attempt, tanking?
What would my family think if I was successful and awesome?
Yeah.
But there are people that actually struggle with that, which it sounds weird to us, but.
So the disempowered pattern, it always has an upside to it.
Okay.
So just being willing, again, without judgment, being able to ask that of yourself. What's the benefit in this? What's the upside?
That's big girl. That's big time, big girl panties. Because that's hard to actually, to say that about yourself. It's like, what am I running from that could possibly be positive for me? And that doesn't even make sense.
Right.
So.
Right.
Okay.
And if you're willing to look,
yeah,
you are going to find something incredibly useful if you're willing to look.
All right. Are we willing to look? I'm willing to look. We'll look together.
So another question, it's the flip side of that.
Sure.
What is this pattern costing me?
Okay.
And if nothing changes, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And am I willing to pay that price with my life?
Most people, if they identify it's a pattern and it's negative, then they want to change it, but are they willing to do the work to change it? Are they willing to actually take the steps to make that something that they no longer do anymore? That's habits. So we're going to talk about habits at some point, because I think that we need to talk about habits that are involved in patterns.
Well, and that really does, it's what it comes down to, is that when you really identify the cost, what is this really costing me at the level of the quality of my life and my future? Yeah. Am I willing to pay that price? Most people don't get present to the cost.
Right.
Because again, it's uncomfortable.
Right.
I don't want to look at how this is actually costing me. Right. But if I do that, again, it gives me choice in the matter. Now I get to choose. And that's actually really important here. Awareness, you don't have choice without awareness.
Sure.
Awareness makes the choice possible, and I still get to do the choosing. Okay.
So you have the power and the control in the situation as well to make the right choice.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So awareness in and of itself isn't enough. It's a starting point. It's essential as the starting point, but I still have a choice to make.
Yeah.
So
that's hard too.
Yes. Yes. So, we are getting to the bottom of our time together here. We're going to have to wrap up.
Too short, Becky. These conversations are a little bit too heavy to start. Well, not heavy, but they're good. And we need to have more time.
Yeah, well, and we will.
Can we talk to somebody about getting more time?
So we will have an upcoming episode that will explore more of the tools, modalities, methodologies that can be really useful in establishing new patterns, breaking old patterns, and can help, in that process. So we'll definitely cover that in a future show.
This is going to be great. Thanks, Becky.
Okay, thanks, Courtney.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye.
See you next time.